A very warm welcome to all our audience, and thank you for joining us from different parts of the country and outside. The global economy is going through an unprecedented recalibration of sorts on account of this pandemic. The modern world has not seen it, and a lot of changes that normally would have taken years to effect are being rolled out in weeks. The pharmaceutical industry is no exception, and India finds itself in a unique position. The, in the 90s, the Indian pharma got a once in a lifetime opportunity in the form of generics and CRO work, which drove a lot of the initial boom back then. This once in a lifetime opportunity is now coming back to us, and it's about to change the way business is done. The question is, can we make the most of it? And to talk about it, I have with me today Mr. Milan Patel, Joint Managing Director of Troika Pharmaceuticals. Welcome, Mr. Patel, and thank you very much for joining us today. I would like to
Thank
invite
you so
opening
much,
remarks
Abhinav.
from you and your thoughts on the topic.
No, I think in the first two lines, you've given a wonderful perspective about how this whole pandemic, it has given back, a very big opportunity. Though I would say it had never gone, the opportunity had never gone away from India, but this has really brought the focus back on India, other than what the headwinds which the industry was facing, say in the 18, 1920s, early 20s, which has now again brought a very positive focus on India. And but at the same time, opportunities are always given by God, and it is up to us to grab them as a country, as an industry, or as an individual company.
Very well articulated, sir. So, as a global pharmaceutical player, what, according to you, what is India's strengths and weaknesses along the entire value chain of the pharmaceutical system?
I mean, strengths are obvious. When we talk of the strengths, it's about the depth and the width of the kind of infrastructure which we have, the whole environment which we have for a pharma industry to thrive or to progress or even to establish itself with respect to the scientists, the pharmacists, the the reasonably cheaper labor, and even in some cases, even the Indian infrastructure machineries, if we don't, in certain areas like oral dosage form or liquid dosage form or capsule and some, even the local machineries make the project cost and everything much more viable. So obviously, it is economy in the pricing. That is one of the biggest things. And secondly, we have got a lot of scientists here which are able to do the reverse integration or the backward integration with respect to the ANDAs or the CTDs in a very efficient and a very, very fast frame of time. So that obviously the whole world knows, and that is why India is known as pharmacy of the world. But if you see on the value chain, which is where the negatives, I would not say the negatives, which is where Indian pharmaceutical sector to address the issue is that volume wise we are as number one in the world. But if you see in the value chain, probably we are not even in the top 10. So that is because, in the value chain, India has to grow up. That is where the challenges are. And the only way, with this such a huge infrastructure, the world-class infrastructure, and one of the best scientists, public pharmacists, we need to see how to grow in the value chain. And the only way we can do that is come out of this cost competition, make it that as just one part of the whole business model. Because the moment you make it just one part of your business model, you are no more in a position, you are no more forced or put in a corner by your buyers or by your distributors or by the countries that you are selling in. It's not easy to do that, but there are at least more than 50, 100 Indian companies who can go up the value chain by going difficult to manufacture products or innovations, not necessarily only new chemical entities, but drug delivery systems. Again, drug delivery systems might not be patented, but there are many difficult drug delivery systems, which without patent, there are being monopolies held worldwide because of just by the weightage of its technology. And there is also, coming up with niche molecules, which again, obviously are niche because they require some kind of technology. So some companies have started doing that. I mean, we are on a platform, so I will not speak anything negative. But on the positive side, if you see companies which are huge in the US markets, including Sun Pharma or Lupin, they are going into their own area, including even Glenmark now. Apart from NCs, they have realized that they have to go into the difficult to manufacture segment, and that gives them the leverage to even create themselves as a brand in those countries. Otherwise, as a brand, hardly Indian companies are there anywhere in the so-called regulated market. It's always generic through distributors, through the government tenders. So that is which is need to be done.
And This is interesting thought that you shared, that Indian pharma companies need to move up the value chain to increase their presence as a brand, and no doubt that there is no dearth of talent in the country. So, moving on, this pandemic has also highlighted some of the problems associated with Indian pharmaceutical supply chains and our dependency as a globally networked economy overall. Our dependency on countries like China and maybe others, but predominantly China, in
Yes.
terms of how we source our APIs or KSMs, and what, according to you, is being done and can be done further to reduce this dependency, in a very productive and constructive manner.
Well, the dependency is, to the scale of really, if I mean, probably you are also on the research side from a manufacturing sector side. It is, if you really think the worst case scenario, it's a panic situation. It can be a panic situation. It's not there right now, but it can be. If we probably, I would not you try to go into foreign affairs, but a trade war with China in pharmaceuticals would cost us a lot.
Right.
Coming to that, that's a fact which everybody knows. But there I think as of now, what had happened was in the past that uh, the economy of scale was not there with the Indian companies. Maybe due to multiple reasons. One of them was that everybody thought that to do the same thing and the whole market got divided. And nobody thought big also. I mean, APIs, and the third angle is the government support. With China, I mean, we know firsthand, and as Troika, we know it firsthand that we have, you don't know who the owner of the company is. It's as big backing by the Communist Party or the government, whatever you call it. So the PLI scheme, which has been discussed in length and breadth, and it has been widened again. I'm so glad that the government has done that. They started with some 40 or 50 odd APIs from the import list from China, but now they realize that it's not only about those APIs, it's also about other products which they widened from APIs to even formulations now. So that is where it will play a catalyst role. But again, it all comes down to, the companies themselves doing world class technologies where their yields are high, their impurities and the qualification levels are the best in the world. Of course, that will need some kind of investments in rupees, but that's where the government is coming in by that. The support given by the government is substantial. It's not something which, and it's recurring. It's not that they give it and then they forget it. So again, they have gone for some minimum, you know, enhancement in your production capacity to avail that PLI. But I do believe that economy of scale and the right technology, without naming any API companies, where we can beat China on the other part is where, if we are able to deliver, why do we need a CTD or a DMF to deliver a certain quality? If you go for a CTD DMF material, it costs us different. I mean, wide range, wide variation in the price, but then that is where the controls are very high. The same company, when it's making a non-CTD or a non-DMF material, the quality is good, but I've seen that after, in 1 or 2 years or in 50 supplies, there's something out of trend or out of specification, mainly out of trend. So these kind of things, if you want to make a worldwide impact, then of course our in-house industry itself is very huge to, just cater and replace the import substitution of China. But Indian API industry just should not look at India because the whole world is not wanting to go to China.
Right.
So it's about the technology and the scales. PLI can just act as a catalyst. I don't think the PLI is a magic pill.
And in your experience as an industry veteran, have you come across other pharma companies in the West, or like you said, regulated markets, showing a preference for India over China in terms of dependability of supply and other factors.
In formulation, obviously, it has been the case. And luckily, it's just luck. And now, with this pandemic, probably we'll be holding that big edge over China. And because of our strength of documentation and our there we have got the economy of scale. The big formulators are there, and our mainly the strength of documentation, where it is maybe 10 times, 15 times. I cannot put a percentage, but it's much larger than documentation required for APIs. So there was a preference in that always with an Indian, manufacturer compared to a Chinese, because Chinese are not able to match up to that level. With respect to APIs, what had happened was that, because of the overall thrust right from the days of Mr. Kissinger and President Nixon, so many people had partnered, invested, taken stake, whatever way you call it, with Chinese companies because of their economy of scale, and taught them the whole cycle of arriving to a DMF or a CTD, even in as complex materials, which like say for enoxaparin, which is a very complex biological, but then they make there are two, three, four Chinese companies who make world class enoxaparin. But all these things probably have been taught by the West. Now I think that opportunity does fall back on India because overall, all said and done, the trust in China has gone down. If it has not gone down to zero, but when we talk to our partners in the regulated world or in the non-regulated world, they want to avoid dealing with China unless it's a compulsion. So that is why I said, that we need to. That's not the only thing which we can, what you call put our bets on. We need to also ensure that we are able to deliver what the world wants. Then obviously the Chinese competition is out. So yes, there is a sentiment. There is no doubt about it. But then only the sentiment will not make you win.
Very
But
well
it's a
said.
big plus. It's a big plus right now.
And this entire COVID period has also been very demanding on pharmaceutical manufacturing companies because, irrespective of the pandemic, this being a critical industry, the manufacturing operations, people operations, everything has to not only go on, but actually, at many levels, also have to be scaled up. So, how have you, as a major pharmaceutical company in India, how have you managed this? And in your experience, how are other companies doing it?
I think the basic rules of what the Ministry of Home Affairs has given, and if there is a continuous dialogue, monitoring, motivation, and also financial support to the whole team, mainly the plant. When we talk of manufacturing operations, the people at the plant office, you can immediately give work from home. So what we have done is we have worked on all the 360 degrees. We have ensured that there was this bare minimum interactions and social distancing that paid off. Yes, to be honest, a week or so in the beginning of the pandemic, a week or so after Diwali, particularly in Ahmedabad, we did have some glitches, but then that is nothing when we talk of a 9 to 10 months period. Number two was continuous communication with the people. That this is how you need to behave. This is how you need to. You are into an industry which is next to the doctors and the nursing staff. Behave responsibly because it's not about the profits of the company only. Company, I mean, it depends on the level the company is. For example, if I talk about Troika, even if we had made a loss this year, it wouldn't have mattered. But like you rightly said, we were supposed to give certain products. And the governments are calling us directly if you talk of products like propofol or even enoxaparin, which is a first line therapy right now for preventing clotting and strokes, which is one of the side effects of COVID-19. And we are one of the manufacturers of enoxaparin. So that social responsibility part, that is not only the 8 hours in the office, but it's also about the 24/7 kind of control your whole family should be, monitoring. Then giving all the facilities, about simple facilities, hygienic food, which we had not required initially when it was a routine working. Then the transportation, giving a very safe transportation. So they should not feel that company on the one side is wanting us to behave in a certain manner, but on the other side, they are making all kind of compromises. Apart from that, the major thing which we did was we created a COVID task force, which was basically there to, send circulars, have video calls, And each side, we've got around three or four sides. Each side had people who were supposed to, have a one-to-one interaction with, again, a team of members who were accountable for the whole monitoring and implementation of the COVID protocol. God's grace, luck, destiny, and our effort, whatever you call it, by and large, we have been 90% through. So we have been able to do this with this kind of multiple approaches. Like after, again, the spike which went up after Diwali in Ahmedabad, because it's like Thanksgiving for the Western guys. We again straight away, even without any instruction or without any specific mandatory need, we went back to social distancing. We again split up the people back to, different staggered shifts. It costs the company a little bit more money, obviously. But then that is what ultimately, it's not only about profit.
And glad to say that this is a motivational Monday themed topic. So I'm sure that even at Troika there are some excellent people out there who have put forward their sense of duty ahead of other things.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I can say the same, that even I'm blessed in that sense. So
I think
moving
you have
on.
raised a very relevant point before moving forward. One point which I forgot was we were a team of around, 10, 15, 20. I can't put a number, but who have put themselves in front. Because ultimately, it's those people who then motivate the people down the line. We are talking of, more than 1,500, 2,000 workers or still overall manpower strength. So you very rightly said. I should acknowledge the contribution by those people.
Oh, excellent. And the thing that this leads us to is COVID-19. And I know a lot of the seminars and discussions these days tend to revolve around it, but this is also an opportunity for us as a nation to see what is going right for us, without giving any political flavor to this whole thing.
Yes,
um,
yes, absolutely.
I personally feel that the way we have managed this as a nation, this entire unprecedented crisis, has been phenomenal. So your thoughts in a very apolitical way.
Absolutely. And when we talk of apolitical, it doesn't mean we criticize the government or we just appreciate the government without any sound logic beyond that. Look, it was a completely unknown terrain when this happened. So it's very easy for anybody in hindsight to say, "Ki ye karna tha, you should have done that, government should have done that." Like people are talking about the problem which happened with the migrants. Now, it was impossible. The fact was that nobody realized that the government responded so fast. They brought in a lockdown so far. So, yeah, probably they missed out the administrative wing, the IAS officers, or the political wing. They missed out the whole issue of the immigrants. And I don't say that that was a wrong issue. But then I think a lot of other things have been done correctly. With the kind of funding which we have, it's a poor country, all said and done. And initially, even today, by and large, I think 90% and above people do get the required hospitalization or the required guideline or required support. Yes, 5-10% variation in such a huge country, it's always bound to be there, and that is also happening in the rich countries. So why talk about India in that way? Unknown terrain. I think the intentions of the government were 10 on 10. Then in this unknown terrain, it's very easy to talk in hindsight and the kind of decisions they have taken. And we saw the intervention also. Initially when the lockdown came in, there was obviously suddenly in 48 hours, you want to mobilize the machinery in a particular direction where you are declaring certain essential commodities, essential industries. The policeman on the road didn't know that this is a pharmaceutical company. But then the collector, the deputy collector, they responded within 24 hours. They gave us passes or they passed down instruction on the route. So that is all commendable. I mean, that is because the intention was always there. So yeah, this is a big country. Yeah. Look at our bureaucracy could be larger than the population of some of the countries we are talking of. So I do believe that, I mean, things have gone wrong, but then it's an unknown terrain. But the intention has always been good, and I think probably we'll come out of it now. I think we are at the bottom of the whole sine wave now. So probably not a sine wave, but the bottom of the trough now, and probably things will go up from here on, including the way they have interacted with Bharat Biotech. And I do believe that probably Bharat Biotech will come with a vaccine which will be at par, or maybe I would not like to predict anything, but it would be a vaccine which will work.
And just straying a little bit from the core topic, now coming back to it, from a pharmaceutical perspective, how do you think that Indian pharma companies can also take this opportunity to aid and assist some of the companies and be the pharmacy of the world to the entire world, including some of the so-called semi or unregulated markets?
I think what you raised a very relevant, not a question, but that's a relevant event which is already happening now. The third world countries and even the semi-regulated countries, they have been looking at India, and I think the Indian companies are responding. I mean, I will not give the name of the country, but in the last few weeks we have got countries like who have never dealt with India in the past directly, or they have dealt with their own reservations and with their own conditions or with their own requirements, which is rightfully so. Each country has its own belief and its own political and geographical needs. We have been approached by these countries through Pharmexil, through the Ministry of Health, through the Ministry of Commerce, and government has played a positive role. And I believe so already. A lot of those countries have started buying from India, and because this is the only country which can give in quality, in quantity, and in the variety of the drugs which we can offer. So it is going to happen, and I think the Indian manufacturers are responding very positively, not in the sense that, okay, here is the opportunity, let's overcharge or let's play
Yeah.
difficult to get. But that I think is a basic Indian nature. So I think that culturally that thing is going to help us also. I told you it's the only thing is going to rise up the value chain. That is one of the only area where the Indians are missing out. And culturally, I think we are much easier people, much better people. I'm not comparing to any other race, but we are that kind of people. That is happening. And today, for example, there is Algeria. It is one of the country which always looks at West, mainly Europe, because it's a very highly French influence. Now they have come out all all hurdles down, no holes, no nothing except they want a good quality, some documentation, GMP. If you've got EU GMP, better still. And they have approached India is one of their main source of supplies. This is just one example which just came to my mind.
Mhm.
That was a country which probably the Indian market, the Indian share in the whole segment was, I don't know, 5, 10%, 15%. And probably by the end of the pandemic, it might rise to maybe double of that amount. Because the multinationals are all tied up with their own countries. They don't
Mm.
have the capabilities or the capacity, not capabilities, the capacities rather.
Capacities.
And the first company to fall back is on India. And I think already people are taking, I will not say the advantage, but people are benefiting out of it, both the country as well as Indian manufacturing. But that
So
is where I think we consolidate and go to the next level now.
I think that's you created a good discussion point. So I wanted to ask you that a lot of, like you said, some of these Eastern European countries, maybe some African
Correct,
countries, and a lot of these
correct,
Latin American
correct.
nations also, they have kind of identified that they have their own regulatory systems, but they also need to buy from somebody like India because we, like you rightly said, we have the capacity. So, how do we look at some sort of a harmonization at the regulatory level so that it's very easy for Indian companies to supply to them as well as them to trust the regulatory and quality systems of Indian companies without necessarily having to benchmark it against, say, FDA approved facilities and
Correct,
others?
correct. That is one of the biggest challenge. And honestly, I don't have I have an answer for that, but it's something which needs a lot of government intervention. Number one, and also a lot of government intent, in the sense that beyond that also there are also on the international forum, India can play then a big role if we reach a certain level. Like I'll be very specific about it. There is this, a consortium which is known as PICS, right, where they follow a very uniform platform of GMP inspection. You get entry into PICS if the organization or the association feels that your regulatory levels are at par with the PICS levels, not on paper but actual implementation. But even after that, it so happens that because of so many countries in that which are not having such a huge stake, if you talk of the national level, international level of market, because USFDAs and EU companies don't bother about PICS. So what is left with PICS is major market, but they are nowhere in size compared to India. If you talk of Brazil or of Canada or of Malaysia or of a Ukraine, Australia, these are the PICS members. Now there is no harmonization there because there is nobody to drive them to bring into a fact that if you are PICS, then why even after PICS there are so many regulatory, no harmonization like you said.
Right.
But India, for that matter, right now we are not part of PICS. But I know there is a big, very strong intent on the part of the government, particularly the PMO, because as we all know, that the Prime Minister is a very proud person, and he, as a out of his self pride for the country, he has given a mandate that our GMP should be implemented, that nobody should point a finger towards Indian pharmaceuticals. So there is a movement, but now COVID is set in and things have slowed down. But there was a very powerful movement that India should enter the PICS. If India enters the PICS, and then after that the country's intent is that they can drive everybody to harmonization. Because people will have to listen, like it is in the cricket world, people have to listen to India in BCCI because we are, the biggest generator of the income for the cricket world. Similarly, a scenario can happen in PICS. That itself will be a big solution. Then people can leave aside the US FDA and EUs because they will ultimately have their own requirement. But the PICS itself harmonization can open up a huge thing. It's a very relevant point you have raised, but I don't think so there is an immediate answer to that. There is an answer, but immediate solution, I don't think it will be arrived in the very near future. Everybody, all FDAs want their own, ultimately, their own importance or their own say in the whole thing.
And rightly said that we have a very proactive government which is tackling some of these things. The pace at which, I know PLI is probably a done and dusted topic, but the pace at which the government was able to roll out something like that is
Absolutely.
commendable indeed. Again, I know we are hitting close to the clock. I wanted to know if there are any other questions that anybody has. However, it's been really nice to hear a fresh pharma perspective, from you. And as we kind of look to close out this conversation, um, I'd like you to summarize key takeaways, and unifying the theme of it being a motivational Monday, and the good things that are looking for us as a pharmaceutical sector, coupled with the responsibility that Indian pharmaceutical sector should assume. So key takeaways in summary from you, Mr. Patel.
I think the pandemic, like I said, has brought, without any doubt, a complete focus and, expectation from the Indian pharmaceutical sector because it was always held in a certain esteem. And now that esteem is helping us in people looking at us because of our capabilities, abilities, and, both ways, technically as well as the numbers, the production capacity. That could be a very good takeoff point for an Indian pharmaceutical sector because all said and done, COVID is not going to last for a lifetime. Hopefully so. I think I'm a scientist. I mean, not a scientist, but I'm connected, and everybody who's listening also is connected to the pharma sector. And ultimately, things will even out over a period of few months or a year or whatever it might be. So the expectation is there. The deliverance is started. I think that is the plus side. And I think what the pharmaceutical sector needs to do is in this period, the consolidation in technology, consolidation in automation, and consolidation in world-class product. If that happens in post-COVID also, India will take such a lead that then it will be difficult for other countries to meet. That is what I would like to conclude with.
And a quick note, I happened to come across an old interview also where you very proudly said that Troika is based on innovation. We don't do marketing and distribution gimmicks of sorts.
Correct.
Being from the R&D space myself, innovation is close to my heart. Uh, According to you, how should Indian pharma companies lay out their innovation game plan so that not only China but globally we are, like you said, recognized and held in high esteem?
So absolutely, one of the biggest headwinds that the industry faced pre-COVID also was, the various kind of warning letters and etc. which are being received. Now, if we adopt technology, artificial intelligence, automation, that is one thing. That is the dependability part, even in the generics. And when we talk of innovation, it's about thinking differently. Innovation can begin as small as packaging, convenience in packaging, and as large as a NCE, new chemical entity. Everything falls within that spectrum. It can be a new drug delivery system. It can be difficult to manufacture. It depends on the company and its capabilities. But I think the point is that we need to at least first talk of a reproducible quality which becomes then the next platform for innovating in a small or a very large way. Like we depend mainly on new drug delivery system, which is a much lesser capital intensive than an NCE, new chemical entity platform. But there are things which are also difficult to manufacture, which are even lesser capital intensive than even a new drug delivery system, because you don't make any clinical trials in that. So, like, maybe, yeah, it could be just ending up with a bioequivalent study. That's about it. But that is the value addition chain. So,
It's all there.
right now people are making hay while the thing is very nice, and people are looking up to India. That respect and that credibility should be, protected by the Indian pharma sector, even after the post-COVID time.
I think that's the to me that's the key takeaway is that, and I'm sure as the other audience is also listening in, that as Indian pharma we have a responsibility to see how the globe perceives us, and uh,
Absolutely.
it's a responsibility that everybody must carry out to their best abilities. So, again, Mr. Patel, thank you very much for this discussion. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm sure the audience has as well. We are not
Thank
taking
you.
any questions today, so in case any of you have, you can always send a comment on this link. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Abhinav. Thank you.